The emergency room erupted into chaos as the gurneys crashed through the doors. Blood everywhere. So much blood that the white tiles looked like a Jackson Pollock painting. I stood frozen in the doorway, my hospital volunteer badge still swinging from where I'd been restocking supply closets, watching my stepfather clutch his mangled arm while my mother pressed desperate hands against the gash in her abdomen. My stepbrother Marcus lay unconscious, his leg bent at an impossible angle, while my stepsister Victoria screamed through her shattered jaw. "Please," my mother gasped, her eyes finding mine across the chaos. Those same eyes that had looked at me with such disgust for 23 years. "Lily, please, we need blood." Dr. Chen rushed past me, shouting orders. "We need O-negative stat. These injuries are too severe. Internal bleeding on all 4 victims. We're going through our entire blood bank supply." "Check her!" Victoria managed to gurgle through her broken face, pointing a trembling finger at me. "She's O-negative." Funny how she remembered that now. The same sister who'd spent years telling everyone at school that they shouldn't share drinks with me because my blood was contaminated. The same family who'd made me eat at a separate table because they didn't want their food near my tainted presence. "Miss," Dr. Chen turned to me, desperation clear in his voice. "Are you O-negative? We need donors immediately or we're going to lose them." I looked at my dying family, the same people who'd forbidden me from swimming in our pool because they said my blood would pollute the water. The same people who'd made me use separate dishes, separate towels, a separate bathroom in the basement. All because my dead father had been Lebanese, and they considered his bloodline inferior to their pure Anglo-Saxon heritage. "I am O-negative," I said quietly. My mother's face crumpled with relief. "Thank God, Lily, hurry, please." But I didn't move, not yet. Because they had no idea what they were really asking for. They had no idea what my blood actually was. 3 months before my father died, he had taken me to visit his grandmother in Beirut. I was only 5, but I remembered the ancient woman's paper-thin hands on my face. Her words in Arabic that my father translated. "This child carries the blessing of our line. Her blood is touched by angels. It will bring fortune to those deemed worthy and reveal the hearts of those who are not." I'd thought it was just the rambling of an old woman, until I turned 13 and accidentally bled on my friend Sophie's dying cat. The cat not only survived but lived another 15 years. Until I was 16 and donated blood for the first time, and the recipient, a homeless veteran, won a $50 million lottery 2 weeks later. Until I was 18 and secretly donated to a children's cancer ward, and every single child went into complete remission. I'd kept it secret, especially from them, because I knew what they'd do if they found out their tainted stepdaughter's blood was actually miraculous. They'd have drained me dry and sold it to the highest bidder. "Lily!" my stepfather roared, his face purple with pain and rage. "Get over here now! You owe us this much after everything we've done for you." Everything they'd done for me. That was rich. I thought back to the day my mother remarried when I was 7. Richard Winters had seemed nice enough at first, a successful real estate developer with 2 children from his previous marriage. My mother, desperate to escape the stigma of being a Lebanese man's widow in her small-minded family, had practically thrown herself at him. The first sign of trouble came at the wedding reception. Richard's mother, a woman who looked like she'd been carved from old money and older prejudices, had taken one look at me and whispered loud enough for everyone to hear. "Well, at least Diane can have proper children now. This one's blood is so tainted you can practically see it in her complexion." My mother hadn't defended me. She'd actually laughed nervously and said, "Yes, we're hoping to give Lily some proper siblings soon." Proper siblings, as if I was improper. As if my very existence was a mistake that needed to be corrected. The abuse started small. I wasn't allowed to sit on the good furniture because Richard said people from that part of the world carried diseases. I had to wash my laundry separately because Victoria claimed my clothes would contaminate theirs. Marcus started a game at school where kids would run away from me screaming about catching terrorist blood disease. My mother watched it all happen and did nothing. Worse, she participated. She stopped cooking the Lebanese dishes my father had taught her to make, said the smell made her sick now. She threw away all his photos, all his books, everything that connected me to him. She even tried to bleach my skin once, said it would help me fit in better. The child support from her father's estate pays for her keep, she'd tell Richard whenever he complained about having to feed me. And it all goes into the family pot anyway. The family pot that I never saw a cent from. While Marcus got a new car for his 16th birthday and Victoria got a shopping spree in Paris, I got a job at 14, lying about my age just to buy my own school supplies. While they vacationed in the Hamptons, I stayed home and cleaned their house. While they ate steak dinners, I was allowed the leftovers if there were any. The worst part was the medical neglect. When I broke my arm falling down the stairs, pushed by Marcus, though no one believed me, they waited 3 days before taking me to the hospital, and only then because a teacher threatened to call child services. When I got pneumonia at 15, my mother said it was probably something genetic from your father's side and made me sleep in the garage so I wouldn't infect the family. I nearly died that winter, but the universe has a funny way of balancing the scales. Every cruelty they dealt me seemed to make my blood stronger. Every act of neglect, every harsh word, every moment of pain, it all concentrated into something powerful flowing through my veins. I discovered the truth about my blood gradually. There was Mrs. Patterson next door, dying of kidney failure, who accidentally got my blood on her when I cut myself helping her garden. Her kidneys started working again within a week. There was the earthquake that hit our town when I was 19. I secretly donated blood under a fake name, and every recipient not only survived, but came out stronger than before. I started volunteering at hospitals, finding ways to help without drawing attention. A drop of blood in a dying patient's IV when no one was looking. A small cut, accidentally, dripping onto someone's wound. I saved hundreds of lives, all while my family continued to treat me like I was diseased. The irony wasn't lost on me. They thought my blood was tainted, contaminated, dirty. They spent years making sure everyone knew how inferior I was, how my very existence was a pollution in their pure family line. Victoria once literally had a party where the theme was contamination, and everyone had to dress like hazmat workers to protect themselves from me. My mother had stood by and laughed. "It's just a joke, Lily. Don't be so sensitive. You know how different you are from us." Different, that was one way to put it. I started planning my escape when I turned 21. I'd saved every penny from my 3 jobs, hidden money in accounts they didn't know about. I'd applied to medical schools across the country under a different name. My father's mother's maiden name, Khalil. I'd been accepted to Johns Hopkins with a full scholarship after the admissions committee was mysteriously cured of various ailments during my interview day. I was 2 weeks away from leaving forever when the accident happened. They'd been driving back from Marcus's college graduation. The one I wasn't invited to, of course. "It's a family thing," my mother had said, as if I wasn't family. They'd been celebrating, drinking champagne in the limo Richard had rented. The driver had been drinking too, though they didn't know that. The collision with the semi-truck should have killed them all instantly. The fact that they were still alive, bleeding out in front of me, was nothing short of a miracle. Or maybe it was just the universe giving me a choice. "Please," my mother whimpered again, her skin growing paler by the second. "Lily, I'm your mother. Please." Now she was my mother. Now when she needed something from me. Not when I'd begged her to stop Richard from locking me in the basement for having contaminated the kitchen by cooking my father's recipes. Not when I'd pleaded with her to let me attend my own high school graduation instead of keeping me home because Richard's business partners would be there. Not when I'd sobbed for her to believe me about Marcus attacking me. "You need my blood," I said, my voice carrying across the emergency room. "My tainted blood. My contaminated, diseased, inferior blood." Richard tried to speak, but only managed to cough up more blood. The irony was delicious. He was literally choking on his own pure, superior blood while begging for mine. "We're sorry," Victoria gasped. "We're so sorry. We didn't mean it." "Yes, you did," I replied calmly. "You meant every word, every action, every moment of cruelty. You made me sleep in the garage during a blizzard because you said my presence would make your Christmas impure. You threw away my father's last letter to me because you said his words were a contamination in your home. You made me watch from the window while you had family dinners, family vacations, family photos, all without me because my blood was tainted." Dr. Chen stepped forward, his face urgent. "Miss, I understand there's history here, but these people are dying. We need your blood now." I turned to him, my decision made. "I'll donate, but I have conditions." Conditions. He looked stunned. This is a medical emergency. And this is my blood, my body, my choice. I looked at my dying family. If you want my tainted blood, you'll agree to my terms. My mother nodded frantically. Anything. Anything you want. First, I said, you'll sign over my father's entire estate to me. The money you've been stealing from his trust fund for 16 years, all of it, plus interest. Richard tried to protest, but Victoria grabbed his arm. Yes, we agree. Second, you'll sign a full confession of the abuse, neglect, and theft you've subjected me to. It will be notarized and filed with the court. More desperate nods. Third, you'll leave this state and never contact me again, not directly, not through lawyers, not through anyone. I am no longer your daughter, your stepdaughter, your stepsister. I am nothing to you, as you've made clear I've always been. Yes, my mother sobbed. Yes, please. Just save us. I sat down in the donation chair as nurses rushed to prepare the equipment, but I had one more thing to say. You should know, I said, as the needle pierced my skin. My blood isn't tainted. It never was. My father's grandmother was right. Our bloodline carries a gift. Every person who receives our blood is blessed with extraordinary health and fortune. The homeless man I donated to 3 years ago? He's now a millionaire entrepreneur. The children in the cancer ward? All in complete remission, growing up to do extraordinary things. The accident victims I've helped? They've all gone on to live remarkable lives. I watched the realization dawn on their faces as my blood began to flow into the collection bags. You spent 16 years telling everyone my blood was contaminated. I continued. You isolated me, abused me, treated me as less than human because of it. When in reality, my blood is probably the most valuable substance on earth. I could have made us all wealthy beyond imagination if you'd just treated me with basic human decency. Instead, you chose cruelty. The blood bags filled one after another, 8 pints, the maximum I could safely give. Dr. Chen supervised personally, making sure I didn't give too much. He didn't understand why I was smiling. They transfused my blood into my family immediately. The effect was almost instantaneous. Color returned to my mother's face. Richard's wounds began to close. Marcus's eyes fluttered open. Victoria's jaw started to reset itself. Within an hour, they were all stabilized. Within 3 hours, they were conscious and alert. Within 6 hours, they were ready to be moved to regular rooms. That's when the lawyers arrived. I'd called them while my family was being transfused. They came with all the documents I'd requested, drafted according to my exact specifications. My family, still weak but coherent, had no choice but to sign. They knew I could publicly expose what my blood could do, and they'd be signing their own death warrants. Everyone who'd ever been wronged by them would come for revenge, knowing they'd been keeping a miracle cure as their abused servant. My mother signed over the trust fund, nearly $3 million she'd stolen over the years. Richard signed over the house, the cars, everything in my name to compensate for the abuse. Marcus and Victoria signed affidavits confirming every act of cruelty they'd committed. But here's the thing about my blood that I didn't tell them. It only brings fortune to those who are worthy. Those who receive it with pure hearts and good intentions flourish. But those who receive it through deception, cruelty, or manipulation? Well, the blessing becomes something else entirely. It's not a curse exactly. The blood doesn't harm them. It simply reveals their true nature to the world. Every lie they've told becomes exposed. Every cruelty they've committed comes to light. Every person they've wronged suddenly finds the courage to seek justice. Within a week of leaving the hospital, Richard's real estate empire crumbled. Turns out he'd been running a massive fraud scheme, and his business partners suddenly developed the clarity to see it and the courage to report it. He was arrested 2 weeks after the accident. Victoria's fiancé discovered the 3 affairs she'd been having. Her job discovered the money she'd been embezzling. Her friends discovered the rumors she'd been spreading about them. She lost everything in the span of a month. Marcus was expelled from college when his professors suddenly realized that every single paper he'd submitted had been plagiarized. His girlfriend left him when she found out about his drug dealing. He was arrested 6 weeks after the accident for assault. Apparently, he'd been attacking other students for years, but they'd been too afraid to come forward. And until now. My mother's fate was perhaps the most poetic. Every relative she'd tried to impress by rejecting me suddenly saw her for what she was, A woman who'd sold her soul and abandoned her child for social status. Her own family disowned her. The country club revoked her membership. The charity boards she sat on expelled her. She ended up alone, shunned by the very society she'd sacrificed me to join. But the blood had one more gift to give them: longevity. They would live long, healthy lives. Decades upon decades to reflect on their choices, to live with the consequences of their actions, to watch from afar as I thrived without them. I used my father's recovered fortune to establish a medical research foundation in his name. Officially, we develop new treatments for rare blood disorders. Unofficially, I donate my blood to children's hospitals around the world, always anonymously, always to those who need it most: the poor, the forgotten, the ones society has written off as tainted. I went to medical school as planned, graduating at the top of my class. I met David there, a fellow student whose parents had also immigrated from Lebanon. He never once thought my blood was tainted. He thought it was beautiful, just like the rest of me. We married in Beirut, in the same church where my father's grandmother had blessed me all those years ago. We have 3 children now. All of them carry the gift in their blood. All of them know their worth has nothing to do with their bloodline and everything to do with their character. They know the story of their grandfather, a man I've told them was a hero. They know about their grandmother, too, though I've told them she died when I was young. It's easier than explaining that she chose hatred over love, prejudice over her own daughter. Sometimes I wonder if my family regrets their choices. Richard serving 25 to life for fraud and conspiracy. Marcus, in and out of jail, unable to hold a job, watching his former victims thrive. Victoria working minimum wage alone, seeing my success in medical journals. My mother living in a one-room apartment, healthy as a horse thanks to my blood, but with no one who will speak to her. I know they're still alive. The blood makes sure of that. They'll live longer than most people, probably well into their hundreds. Every day, a reminder of what they threw away because they thought my blood was tainted. Dr. Chen, who witnessed everything that day in the emergency room, now works at my foundation. He never asked questions about what happened to my family after they recovered. He just looked at me one day and said, "Some people save lives. Some people deserve lives, and they're not always the same people." Sophie, my childhood friend whose cat I'd saved, is now my research partner. She's one of the few who knows the truth about my blood. She's helping me synthesize its properties, hoping to create treatments that don't require me to bleed myself dry. Though I don't mind the bleeding. Every drop that saves an innocent life feels like redemption for the years I was told my blood was worthless. The Lebanese community in my city has embraced me as one of their own. They knew my father, remembered him as a good man who died too young. They never thought my blood was tainted. They thought it was a blessing. Turns out they were right. I still volunteer at the hospital where my family begged for my blood. Sometimes new staff members ask about the incident, having heard whispers of the family who miraculously recovered, only to have their lives destroyed within months. I tell them it's just a rumor, an urban legend. But the old staff know better. They've seen what happens when kindness is repaid with cruelty, when gifts are treated as curses. There's a plaque in the children's wing now, paid for by an anonymous donor who won the lottery after receiving a blood transfusion. It reads, "Sometimes what seems tainted is actually sacred. Sometimes what seems pure is actually poison. The heart knows the difference, even when the eyes are blind." My eldest daughter asked me once if I ever forgave them, my family who thought my blood was tainted. I told her forgiveness isn't always about reconciliation. Sometimes it's about release. I forgave them so I could be free. But forgiveness doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean allowing toxic people back into your life. It means choosing peace over revenge, choosing to use your gifts for good, rather than letting bitterness poison your own blood. Though I'll admit, there was a certain satisfaction in the cosmic justice of it all. The universe has a sense of humor, I've learned. It gave a family who valued blood purity above all else a daughter whose blood could perform miracles. It let them reject that gift, abuse it, call it tainted and contaminated, and then, in their darkest hour, it made them beg for that very blood they despised. They got what they wanted. My tainted blood now flows through their veins. Forever. A permanent reminder that what they rejected as contamination was actually consecration. What they feared as poison was actually a cure. What they threw away as worthless was actually priceless. But here's the real irony: my blood didn't taint them. They had already tainted themselves long before that accident with hatred, prejudice, and cruelty. My blood just revealed what was already there, brought it to the surface where everyone could see it. The last time I saw my mother was 6 months after the accident. I was walking out of a medical conference where I'd just presented my research on revolutionary blood treatments. She was standing across the street, thin and haggard, despite the health my blood had given her. She raised her hand, maybe to wave, maybe to call out. I looked right through her and kept walking. She'd had 23 years to see me, to value me, to love me. She'd chosen blindness instead. Now she could see me succeeding, thriving, living the life she'd tried to deny me. But I would never see her again. She was nothing to me now, just another stranger whose life had been saved by my tainted blood. That's the thing about blood. It doesn't lie, it carries the truth of who we are in every cell, every droplet. My family thought they could judge its worth by its origin, by whose veins it had flowed through before mine. They thought they knew what purity meant. But purity isn't about race or lineage or the circumstances of your birth. It's about how you treat others. It's about choosing love over hate, kindness over cruelty, acceptance over prejudice. By that measure, my blood had always been pure, and theirs had always been tainted. Now they live with my blood in their veins, keeping them healthy and whole while their lives crumble around them. They wanted my blood when they were dying. They got it. They just never asked what else would come with it. Justice, as it turns out, sometimes flows through the very veins of those who thought themselves superior. And mercy? Mercy is giving them exactly what they asked for, knowing full well they had no idea what they were really requesting. My blood wasn't tainted, but now theirs is tainted with the truth of who they really are, revealed for all the world to see. They begged for a transfusion to save their lives. What they got was a transfusion that revealed their souls. And me? I'm living my best life with my beautiful family, saving lives every day with my supposedly tainted blood. I teach my children about their heritage, both sides of it. The Lebanese side that gave us this gift, and the American side that taught us, through negative example, exactly how not to treat people who are different. Every morning, I look in the mirror and see my father's eyes, my grandmother's nose, my own strength forged in the fires of their hatred. I see blood that they called tainted flowing through veins they said were worthless, and I smile, because I know the truth. My blood was never tainted, but theirs is now, and they have to live with that for a very, very long time. The foundation I established has now helped over 10,000 children worldwide. Each one received a small amount of my blood, synthesized and diluted, but still carrying its essential properties. The success rate for recovery is nearly 100%. Medical journals call it a miracle. I call it justice. My children have started showing signs of carrying the gift. My eldest daughter accidentally healed a bird with a broken wing. My son's best friend recovered from leukemia after a playground accident where their blood mingled. My youngest, only 4, seems to make flowers bloom wherever she bleeds from her scraped knees. I've taught them to hide it for now. The world isn't ready for what our blood can do. But someday, when they're older and wiser, they'll continue the work. They'll save lives, quietly and without recognition, just as their grandfather would have wanted. David knows everything. He knew before we married, insisted on knowing why my family wasn't at our wedding. He held me while I sobbed out the whole story, then dried my tears and said, "Their loss. You're the most precious thing in the world, and they threw you away like garbage. But I found treasure in what they discarded." He's never once suggested we reach out to them. He's never once thought my blood was anything other than a gift. He even jokes that marrying me was the best investment he ever made. Not because of what my blood can do, but because of who I am, despite what they tried to make me. The accident that nearly killed them happened on May 15th. Every year on that date, I donate blood. Not for them, they're beyond needing it now, healthy as they'll ever be. I donate for the children who need it, the forgotten ones, the ones society deems tainted or unworthy. I give them my blood and with it, a chance at the life they deserve. Richard's prison letters go unopened and returned. Marcus's emails bounce back undelivered. Victoria's social media messages get blocked and deleted. My mother's tears fall on deaf ears. They wanted my blood, but not me. Now they have neither. The medical community has started calling the mysterious healing property in certain blood donations the guardian angel phenomenon. They have no idea how accurate that is. My father's grandmother called me angel-touched. She said our bloodline carried heaven's favor, but only for those who wielded it with compassion. My family thought compassion was weakness. They thought cruelty was strength. They learned too late that the opposite was true. I sometimes wonder what would have happened if they'd just been kind, if they'd welcomed me as family instead of treating me as a parasite. We could have all lived blessed lives. My blood would have protected them from illness, brought them fortune, made their lives extraordinary. Instead, they chose hatred, and my blood became their judgment. The research is progressing beautifully. We've isolated several unique proteins in my blood that seem to trigger rapid cellular regeneration and immune system enhancement. Within 5 years, we might be able to synthesize it completely. No more need for donations. Just laboratory-created miracle cures for everyone who needs them. The patents will be in my father's name. The profits will go to refugee children, to mixed-race kids facing discrimination, to all the tainted ones who just need someone to see their worth. It's what he would have wanted. Sometimes late at night, I think about the moment in the emergency room when I could have walked away. I could have let them die with their pure blood pooling on the floor. Part of me wanted to. The hurt child in me wanted to watch them fade away, taking their cruelty with them, but that would have made me like them. That would have truly tainted my blood. With vengeance instead of justice, with cruelty instead of mercy. So I gave them what they asked for, knowing full well that sometimes the greatest punishment is getting exactly what you demand. They're alive today because of my tainted blood. They're ruined today because of their pure hearts, purely cruel, purely selfish, purely evil. My blood didn't destroy them, it simply revealed them. And revelation, I've learned, can be the cruelest mercy of all. The volunteer coordinator at the hospital recently asked if I wanted to share my story publicly to inspire other donors. I declined. Some stories are better left untold to the wider world. Some justice is better served cold and quiet. Some blood is better given anonymously, without fanfare or recognition. Besides, my family is still out there, living their long, healthy, ruined lives. I wouldn't want them to find any comfort in knowing that their cruelty led to something beautiful. Let them think my blood was wasted on them. Let them live with the knowledge that they begged for the very thing they'd spent decades rejecting. The truth is, my blood was never wasted. Every drop they received carries a message, a reminder, a judgment. They will never be sick. They will never die young. They will live perhaps longer than any humans in history. And every single day of those endless years, they'll remember the day they begged for a transfusion from the girl whose blood they called tainted. My youngest daughter asked me yesterday why some people are mean to others who are different. I told her that fear makes people cruel, that ignorance makes people hateful, that pride makes people blind. But most importantly, I told her that nothing, not blood, not birth, not the circumstances of your existence, makes you less worthy of love and respect. Our blood is special, I told her, but it doesn't make us better than anyone else. It makes us responsible for helping others, for healing where we can, for choosing kindness, even when we've been shown cruelty. She nodded solemnly, then asked, "What about the people who were mean to you?" "They're living with the consequences of their choices," I said, "and that's all the justice the universe requires." She seemed satisfied with that answer. Children often understand justice better than adults. They know instinctively that actions have consequences, that kindness begets kindness, and that cruelty carries its own punishment. The sun sets now on another day in my blessed life. David is cooking dinner, my father's recipes that he learned from my aunt, the only family member who ever defended me. My children are playing in the garden, their laughter filling the air. The walls are covered with their art, photos of our trips to Lebanon, medical degrees, and awards that bear my father's name alongside mine. This is what they could have had. This joy, this peace, this blessed existence. All they had to do was love me, or at least treat me with basic human dignity. Instead, they chose to call my blood tainted. Now my blood flows through their veins. a permanent reminder of their failure. They will outlive everyone they know, watching the world change, unable to escape the consequences of their cruelty. My blood will keep them young enough to suffer, old enough to remember, healthy enough to endure the full weight of their choices. Some might call it revenge. I call it balance. They wanted my blood, but not me. They got my blood and lost everything else. The universe, in its infinite wisdom, gave them exactly what they deserved. And me? I got everything they tried to deny me. Love, family, success, purpose, peace. My blood wasn't tainted, their hearts were. And in the end, that made all the difference. The story could end here with this poetic justice, this perfect reversal of fortune. But life isn't a story with neat endings. It continues, flowing like blood through veins, carrying the past into the future. My eldest daughter recently asked if she could meet her other grandparents. I told her they had passed away, a kind lie to protect her from the truth. Someday when she's older, I'll tell her the real story. How hatred can poison a family more thoroughly than any contamination. How choosing prejudice over love costs more than anyone can imagine. But for now, I let her believe in a world where families love unconditionally, where blood is just blood, where no one is tainted simply for existing. She'll learn the truth eventually, but not yet. Let her have these pure years, untainted by the knowledge of what people can do to those they're supposed to love. The foundation just received its largest donation ever, $50 million from an anonymous benefactor. The note simply said, "From one who was healed by tainted blood and learned that purity comes from the heart, not the heritage." I have my suspicions about who it might be, one of the lottery winners probably. But it doesn't matter. What matters is that more children will be saved. My blood will continue to flow through donations, through my children, through the synthetic versions we're developing. It will heal and bless and reveal truth wherever it goes. The same blood they called tainted, contaminated, diseased, the same blood they begged for when death came calling. They're still out there, my former family, living their long, healthy, empty lives. Sometimes I imagine them in their solitude, feeling my blood pulse through their veins, remembering the daughter and sister they threw away. Do they realize now what they had? Do they understand what they lost? Do they comprehend that my blood wasn't the contamination their hatred was? It doesn't matter anymore. They made their choice. They marked me as tainted, and in doing so, marked themselves. My blood flows in their veins now, not as contamination, but as conviction. Not as poison, but as proof of their own poisonous hearts. The emergency room where it all happened has been renovated. They've put up a small plaque that reads, "Every drop of blood is precious. Every donor is a hero. Every life is worth saving." The staff who were there that day insisted on it. They saw what happened when my tainted blood met their pure hatred. They saw the truth revealed in transfusion. Dr. Chen retired last year, but still volunteers at the foundation. He once told me, "I've seen a lot of medical miracles, but what happened with your family wasn't about medicine. It was about justice. Your blood didn't just save their bodies, it exposed their souls." He was right. My blood is many things: healing, blessed, powerful, but above all, it's honest. It reveals the truth of whoever receives it. For the worthy, it brings fortune and health. For the cruel, it brings the consequences they've earned. As I watch my children play, their laughter pure and untainted by the prejudices that nearly destroyed me, I realize that this is the true miracle. Not that my blood can heal, but that hatred couldn't corrupt it. Not that it brings justice, but that it brings truth. Not that it saved my family's lives, but that it revealed why they weren't worth saving. They begged for a transfusion after the accident. The family who said my blood was tainted. They got their transfusion. They got my blood. They got exactly what they deserved. And I got my freedom, my future, my family, who sees my blood not as tainted, but as the gift it always was. They wanted my blood without me. Now they have to live with it forever, a reminder pulsing through their veins with every heartbeat. They had a miracle in their home and called it contamination. They had love in their lives and chose hate instead. My blood wasn't tainted, but theirs is now, and they'll have a very long time to think about why.